Lightly Row from Suzuki Book 1. So I love this piece because it's a great opportunity to practice bow distribution. And bow distribution is something that is going to allow you to play more musically, to have better dynamics, to have better control of your sound, to look and sound more professional. Bow distribution really is, after intonation, probably the most important aspect of your playing. And I love practicing this stuff and I love teaching this stuff because once you figure out how to do it, it's actually not very complicated at all. And once you figure out how to use bow distribution to your advantage, you can make anything sound more musical pretty much instantly. It's really just as simple as saying, oh, what part of the bow should I play this part, this in? What part of the bow should I play this passage in? What part of the bow should I play this note in? Should I use more or less? Should I slow down or speed up? And if you can dial all of that in, you can create phrases absolutely effortlessly. But we just start with some basic practice, some basic skills, and what you see in this piece here is a pattern of short notes and long notes. And you have always an even number of short notes followed by a single long note, followed by another even number of short notes and then a single long note. In this case, we're dealing with quarters and halves. So at the beginning, I have 2 quarters followed by a half note, then another 2 quarters followed by a half note, and then I have 6 quarter notes followed by a half note, but I'm always doing the even followed by the odd. And what happens is that every time I have a half note, it's going to take me from one end of the bow to the other. And my quarter notes are going to be confined to either the lower half or the upper half. I'm actually not going to be playing any of this piece sort of vaguely in the middle. It's going to be very precise. Lower half, go to the tip, upper half, come back to the frog. Right? Now when we get into making this a little bit more musical and perhaps adding some dynamics, you can play around with kind of the location of where you're doing things, but the formula is still more or less the same. Lots of bow for the half note, much less bow for the quarter notes. So this bowing is sometimes referred to as alternate bowing, and that just simply means that you have the same figure, but one time you do it on a down bow and then the next time you'll do it on an up bow. So let's take a look. We're going to start from the beginning. I'm going to play the first 2 bars. And so what happened here, I hope you saw, I played my first 2 quarter notes very strictly in the lower half, and then I went all the way to the tip, and then my second measure started at the tip, and I did not pass the middle. Watch again. So that's really important because on your long note, you're going to be doing lots of bow, and it's very easy, especially on the up bow this tends to happen, for the arm to just want to come back to where you started from. It's going to want to come back to the frog. And for that to happen, it means you're going to have to play your quarter note with much faster bow speed, and we don't want that. We actually want the opposite. Because think about it, the more frequently I need to change direction, right, the more movement that is in the right arm, right? So think about driving. If you're driving and there are lots of turns in the road, you're not going to be going very fast, I hope, right? But if you're just going in a straight line down a straight road, you can go pretty fast. So that's the half note. The half note is great. You're just highway. Okay, so I can use lots of bow and get to the tip. And then now I have sometimes as many as at least 6 quarter notes in a row. And that's a lot of back and forth. And the more bow I use, the faster I need to move, right? So more bow is equal to more bow speed. More bow is faster bow speed. Less bow is slower bow speed. And sometimes faster bow speed is great, but not when I'm having to constantly change direction. So when you have quarter notes, you're actually going to try and keep them a little bit more concise. So just a little bit slower bow than maybe what you might do otherwise. Just play around with that. So of course, not to the point of making any like cracking sounds, but what happens if you slow your bow down a little bit on the quarter notes, use a little bit heavier arm? So let's have a look one more time. So I'm going to be a little bit heavy at the beginning. And then on the last note, the half note, I'm just going to let it go. And then same thing here. As I start my up bow, I'm going to lean into the string a little bit more to add weight to the string so that I can't go too fast. And then on the long up bow, I can release some of that weight and go faster, and then the bow speed is what's going to give me a little bit more volume too. Now the other reason for adding a little bit more weight at the tip, you're going to do that using the index finger here, is it's lighter here. I don't have all of the arm weight that I have at the frog. I don't have that at the tip. So if I don't do something special, if I don't do something extra to lean in and get more into the string, it's just going to sound quieter. And with this type of bow stroke, we don't want it to be apparent when we're playing down bow and when we're playing up bow. It's actually supposed to sound the same, down or up. The bowing is just, that's just a tool. That's just something we have to do as string players. We can't get around having to bow, right? It's always either down or up. It's constantly something where we're choosing which direction to play. Should I slur this? Should I not? At the beginning, when you're just starting out, those decisions are made for you, either by what the music says, by the addition, by your teacher, by somebody else usually. And then at one point you begin to make those decisions for yourself, right? But that's always going to be something we have to deal with. Which direction do we play? Is it down or is it up? Is it the tip or the frog? And none of that actually has anything to do with music. That's just the nature of our instrument. Just like we have to deal with shifts, we have to deal with changing position. It's not initially a means for expression. Can you use shifting to be expressive? Yes, for sure, but occasionally. Can you be expressive in the way that you choose your bowings? Yes, of course, you can use bowings to your advantage, but more than anything, that's just technique. That's just something we have to do, right? So when you have a musical phrase that does not ask for it to be different all of a sudden, just because you're at the tip, right? The idea is, can we make this sound as if it were the same, as if it were down bow? So I'm going to lean in. This is measure 2, starting on G. Just going to have a little bit more weight there. And then on the up bow, less weight, because I need to be able to get to the frog. I need to be able to move my bow faster. When I arrive at the frog, now I have a longer pattern, but it's still the same formula. I still have an even number of quarter notes followed by a single half note, and the half note is what's going to take me to the upper half. And so now we arrive at the second line. Now, an important thing to realize about this piece is that it is an A-B-C-B form, meaning that the second and the last line are identical. Now it happens that this is the way it appears on the page. You have 4 measures per line if you're looking at the Suzuki book, and you have 4 measures per phrase. You could make the argument that, say, the first phrase is 8 measures long. That's fine. You can think of it as part of a phrase or a half phrase. But the idea is that you have 4 sets of 4 measures, and the second and last set are the same. Now, they are the same at first glance, but if you look more closely, and especially if you play, you might notice that they are actually quite different. And the difference is the bowing. When you get to line 2, you're starting that on an up bow. When you get to the end, line 4, you're starting that same music, those same notes on a down bow this time. And they are going to feel different. And they should feel different, and especially if you're doing this bowing properly, they will feel very different. If you're just kind of vague about your bowing and playing everything more or less in the middle, you're not going to notice it that much, but you might still notice when you accidentally end up backwards. It just doesn't feel right. Okay, so it's good to realize this. Okay, line 2 starts up bow, because that's not intuitive. If you're just looking at line 2, and if you're just looking at those notes, you would probably just start them down bow. Why not? Our intuition usually says down bow, especially when we're in the early stages, before we have all of the knowledge about what might work better up bow. when we see anything, we just play down bow. And it really makes sense in this case because it's a downbeat. You have an even number of notes. Why not start down bow? But the way it works out is that you're going to be starting from the tip. So the problem is that if you practice it the wrong direction a whole bunch and then you put it in context, and in context all of a sudden you're at the tip, it's just going to feel weird. So it's really important to practice those notes with the right bowing. Now in this case you are going to need to be able to do both anyway, but it's important to be able to distinguish them. And then you'll also, that's going to be another way of knowing kind of where you are in the music. It's like, oh, okay, I've arrived here. This is line 2. You get to the end, oh, I've arrived at the frog. This is the end. So it's just more information to help us internalize the piece. Let's play this. So I have 3 full measures of quarter notes and then 2 more quarter notes, all in the upper half, all starting from the tip, going towards the middle, not ever passing the middle, back to the tip, and I only get to use the whole bow at the very end. It is so easy during this line, during all of those quarter notes, to begin to migrate and to over time just arrive somewhere in the middle. And that's going to throw you off for the final note as well, because you won't really be in a position to use a lot of bow if that happens. So see if you can be really rigorous about staying in the upper half, staying above the middle, and applying enough weight to really make those notes speak well, because they don't want to do that near the tip. Now the half note at the end is going to take me back to the frog, and then I can start the third line. The third line, again, we have a whole lot of quarter notes, not as many as we just did, but again, it's important that we stay confined to the same part of the bow. Okay, so we're going to stay in the lower half. And then I go to the tip on the half note, and now I have the next 2 bars, which are going to be from the tip. So it's exactly the same thing, right, reversed. I start the line at the frog, I play 6 notes, then I go to the tip, and now I play 6 notes, then I go to the frog, right? So this is a perfect example of that alternate bowing. I have one figure starting here, and then at the end of that figure I end up at the tip, and then I repeat the same figure, but now this is the start. Now this is the start of the bow. And now we've arrived at the last line of the piece, the last 4 bars, and everything is the same as line 2, except for here it is on a down bow. And if you're familiar with this piece, and if you've already been practicing this, you might have noticed that this little arpeggio at the end, or triad, or call it what you will, which is actually a very famous little teaching point. There's a lot to be said about that arpeggio, but you might have noticed that it's a lot easier at the end if you're getting your bowing right. And the reason for that is the string crossing. So when you cross at the end, this is going to be the last 2 bars. Notice where the crossing happens. So it's right at the frog. And then again at the frog, I cross back. And when I play this in line 2, it's the same thing from the tip. So what does that mean for my string crossing? You see, my string crossings are now not only on an up bow, but they are at the very, very tip of the bow, and it's just further. It's a bigger arm movement to get there, and so what happens is that people are often late. They're late to get to the string, and so we hear some extra noise during that string crossing. Something like that. And that's just hearing the previous string because you've changed direction. You're already bowing in the new direction, but you haven't finished the crossing. So to practice that, take the left hand away, just figure out what the pattern is for the bow, and the bow is just doing D, D, A, D, 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 and you practice that without the left hand. Now you might still be having trouble in hitting the previous string when you cross. Right, you hear that overlap? And so for that, just practice with a stop. Stop and cross. So you stop before the A, but then you're going to cross as soon as you can. Go. I'm on the A string, I haven't played. I'm ready to go, but I'm not going anywhere yet. And now I can go. Go. Alright, so cross. When I play my two A's, I'm going to cross to the D string as soon as I can. As soon as I'm done the A, I'm there, I'm ready, I'm not playing. And then when I know that I'm ready, I'm 100% sure, okay, I'm on the right string, then I can go. So it's this idea that you want to get everything ready to go the night before, you leave it at the front door, so that when you actually get up the next day, you just pick it up and you are out the door. As opposed to the other one where you're sort of like, yeah, I'm ready, and then you're out the door, but where's my cell phone? Oh, wait, where's my keys? I forgot. That's how I get ready in the morning. But for whatever reason, when I need to cross strings and when I need to prepare the next note, it has been absolutely ingrained in me that I need to get there and just not do anything until I'm 100% sure. And all of that is going to happen in a matter of split seconds once you master it. But at the start, take all the time in the world, and you can add the left hand, do the same thing. Cross, wait, go. Cross, wait, and then go. And notice I am saying cross, wait, and not wait, cross. It's important, because the danger is that you will stop in your tracks. Stop, wait, and then you're waiting, and now you're, okay, now I'm going to play. But you're not there yet. You're just waiting. You're putting the gap in, but you're not getting to the next string. And what's really important is that you get to the next string. And on this subject, actually, I recorded a video for coordination of the left and right hand, and I talk about this there a lot. And that one is more talking about getting the left hand down before the bow plays. But I think we're doing an example with a scale, and I do address what happens with the string crossing, and it's that exact same example. We need to get ready. We need to be ready for the next note before playing it. It's not just inserting time, waiting, and then still having to scramble at the last moment. That's not the same thing, all right? So then you can do it the way that it happens at the end, and you'll notice how much easier it is when it's at the frog and on a down bow. And if you notice that it's not quite perfect here either, you just do the same practice, but this time you do it on a down bow. That's it. You'll get the same result. And I guarantee that the second one is going to be so much easier to do. All right? So one last thing that I want to mention is that when you get really comfortable with this type of bowing, you can begin to use it to your advantage for things like dynamics and phrasing. And we can just talk about how to do a crescendo using this. Say you want to start a crescendo on line 3, and you want to do a big crescendo to the end of that line. Well, you keep the same proportions, but you're just going to scale everything down. So I'm going to be using even less bow, and I'm not going to be going all the way to the tip on my half notes or the frog, but I am going to be using more. And then as I get louder, I'm going to just be increasing the bow, always using a little bit more, and it'll look something like this. You see, so I started with little bows for quarter notes, and then as I got louder, I used more and more bow for my quarter notes. And then when I got to the last line and I wanted to play the loudest, I was using pretty much good, healthy half bows. You probably don't want to be using so much bow throughout, because that's really playing at a full forte the whole time. If you're playing more of a mezzo, just a little bit less, just so you're really comfortable. Again, you don't want to always be putting in all of that effort of just moving the bow left and right. All right, guys, so I hope that was helpful. Let me know in the comments what you think. I am about to start a course on books 1 and 2. This is going to run from September 16th all the way through December 16th. I'm going to be doing this type of lesson on every single piece in book 1, every single piece in book 2. You can choose to do book 1 or book 2 or both. It's completely up to you. So let me know in the comments if this was helpful. I would love to see you in one of those classes. If you have any questions, just drop them below, send me a message, get in touch. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.